difference between power and authority. Power is the ability to control resources in one's own interest. Authority is the ability to cause others to act based on respect. I was in the habit of picking up food from a local business and delivering it to the women's shelter. If some of the women were smoking on the front porch, I usually joined them for a cigarette for 2 reasons. 1, I enjoyed their company. 2, I wanted to reinforce the idea that Christians have vices too. One of the women asked if I would conduct a Bible study with her, but I had to decline because of the rules being imposed on me by the church. I told her that the director of the women's shelter had taken my former position of employment on staff, and that the spiritual police would likely come down hard on her for allowing me to conduct a Bible study at the shelter. When she heard this, she said, "I think I know who the spiritual police are." Then she told me about how the prayer of the woman at church was cut short. According to my smoking friend, one of the spiritual police whispered to the praying woman during her prayer, "Stop praying." And when the woman refused to stop praying, the person in authority leaned close to her ear and forcefully whispered, "Shut up." Blog excerpt from October 31st, 2009, Worship Charades. Yesterday I found out about something that happened on a Sunday morning at my church that makes me so incredibly angry. I have held my tongue about many things and made it a point not to drop names because I believe God is the judge, not me. When I am the casualty of callous nastiness, I suck it up and press on. But when one of God's little ones is left defenseless, let's just say that my anger probably does not even begin to compare to God's at this moment. When I say little ones, I don't mean a child, but someone who has been beat down by life, found her way into a place where there's supposed to be love and acceptance, risked rejection as she trusted in God's prompting, and was verbally slapped across the face for it by someone who is supposed to be setting the example for the rest of us. We can't have a face that says, "Welcome everyone, warts and all," and hearts that demand flawlessness and absolute conformity. My hope is that anyone who still has a say-so will say so as God leads, even if it means losing job, status, or reputation. I personally would put this issue on the table in behalf of my brothers and sisters, but I have been told that I am not allowed to represent my church in any way. My hands are tied, but God's aren't. Isaiah 1:13-17, the Message Bible. Quit your worship charades. I can't stand your trivial religious games. Monthly conferences, weekly Sabbaths, special meetings. I can't stand any more. Meetings for this, meetings for that. I hate them. You've worn me out. I'm sick of your religion, while you go right on sinning. When you put on your next prayer performance, I'll be looking the other way. No matter how long or loud or often you pray, I'll not be listening. And do you know why? Because you've been tearing people to pieces and your hands are bloody. Go home and wash up. Clean up your act. Sweep your lives clean of your evil doings so I don't have to look at them any longer. Say no to wrong. Learn to do good. Work for justice. Help the down and out. Stand up for the homeless. Go to bat for the defenseless. Isaiah 1:13-17. The spiritual policeman apparently did not know that he was the offending party to whom I referred in my blog, because after reading it, he proceeded to print out copies of it to hand out at a meeting so that action could be taken against me. The fact that I was about to be put in the hot seat for following the biblical instructions, go to bat for the defenseless, demonstrated to me that this church valued conformity above all else. Several people were bothered with me for not attempting to solve this privately, per Jesus' instructions for conflict resolution. What they did not realize is that I had been doing just that from January through the end of October, with no results. The very people who needed to be confronted, and the very people who I had attempted to recruit as witnesses, who could mediate or bring destructive behavior before the assembly, had either ignored the problem or strictly forbidden me to speak with them, call them, or email them. I realized that no real change could take place in an environment where no one was willing to take a strong public stand against spiritual oppression, abuse of power, and corrupt behavior. Part of ethnographic methodology is to evaluate cultures and subcultures, such as a people group in a religious institution, to contribute to outsiders' understanding of that group. Looking at the situation from this perspective, I realize how the status quo was, and still is, maintained. I will use a well-known, real-life example to explain. Most people have never heard of Claudette Colvin, but many people have heard of Rosa Parks. Colvin's nearly identical act of protest as a black woman refusing to give up her seat on the bus was not enough to be a catalyst for change, while Parks refusing to give up her seat on the bus caused a year-long boycott of the Montgomery bus system. What was the difference? I believe that the difference was time. Anthropologist Laura Nader of the University of California, Berkeley says, systems of thought develop over time and reflect the interests of certain classes or groups in society who manage to universalize their beliefs and values. Just as negative influences of stratification take time to construct, they also take time to deconstruct. In Colvin's situation, the people who were present had either not yet become convinced of their ability to bring about change, or they succumbed to fear of consequences despite having become convinced of their ability to bring about change. Maintaining stratification status quo in a system where no one stands in opposition is relatively easy through the use of intimidation or propaganda. Those who hold power create a public perception of themselves as normal, natural, divinely guided, or at least well-deserved. Those who are supposedly subject to the dominant group subscribe to the assertion that the social order is divinely fixed and therefore not to be questioned. The appearance of power is, in itself, power over anyone who believes it.
You're part of me, and though you're invisible, I'll trust the unseen.
Time has a way of uncovering and dismantling the appearance of power. When someone speaks or acts out against the dominant group, diffusion of hope takes place. The oppressed are introduced to the idea that this power can and should be questioned, after all. The oppressed, given enough time, begin to remember the concepts of equality and freedom. They recall that people are created in God's image, have dignity and worth, and ought to be treated with respect. The oppressed simply need time to weigh the benefits versus costs of challenging the status quo. In the case of Colvin, the individuals who were made aware of the situation weighed the benefits and costs and decided that the costs were too great. In the case of Parks, the individuals who were made aware of the situation weighed the benefits and the costs and decided to act despite the consequences. Costs can range from mere inconvenience to death, depending on the severity of the situation, but people always have a choice, and eventually people choose to act.